Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here. If you've been working with Python for a little while, you've probably reached that incredibly exciting, yet kind of frustrating point where you just want to show your work to the world. You want to take your code out of the terminal and put it on the web. Well, consider me your friendly mentor today because we're going to demystify exactly how you do that. We're going to bridge the gap between your local Python scripts and the global internet. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's the classic question. You know Python, right? You can write loops, define functions, maybe you've even crunched some data. But how on earth do you translate that into a website or an API that a browser can actually understand? There are a ton of frameworks out there, but today we are looking at one of the absolute simplest, most elegant, and frankly, most popular solutions available. It's called Flask.
All right, let's dive into this. Here is our straightforward, step-by-step roadmap for today. 1. From Python to the web. 2. Your first Flask application. 3. Understanding routes and views. 4. Building dynamic web pages. 5. APIs and database integrations. And finally, number 6, real-world Flask and security.
Section 1. From Python to the web.
I absolutely love this quote from our sources. Think of Flask as a flexible starter kit for web development. Think about it. When you're building a house, you don't want the builders to force you to buy their specific furniture, their paint colors, and their appliances, right? You just want a solid foundation and some walls. Python is your programming language, your raw material. Flask is that solid foundation. It handles the heavy lifting of basic web communication, taking a request from a browser and sending a response back, and then it just completely gets out of your way so you can add whatever extra tools your project actually needs. So by definition, Flask is a lightweight Python web framework. And lightweight is literally the keyword here. Unlike other heavy-duty frameworks that force a very rigid project structure on you, Flask starts tiny. It provides just the core features needed to handle web requests. This makes it utterly perfect for an incredible range of things, from spinning up a quick prototype or a personal website in an afternoon, all the way to powering massive, high-traffic REST APIs. And this workflow brilliantly illustrates the invisible handshake that happens every single time you click a link on a Flask-powered website. Step 1. The user's browser sends a request to a specific URL. Step 2. Flask acts kind of like a traffic cop. It looks at that URL and says, I know exactly which route handles this. Step 3. Flask passes the baton to a specific Python function that you wrote. Your code does its magic, maybe checking a database or running a calculation. Step 4. Your function spits out a response, like some HTML. And finally, Step 5. Flask packages that up and sends it right back to the browser. That's the whole shebang, laid bare. Moving right along to Section 2, your first Flask application. It all starts in your terminal. Installing Flask is as simple as running a single command using Python's standard package installer, pip. You literally just type python-m pip install Flask, hit enter, and within seconds, your machine is completely ready to build web servers. Next up, you create a new Python file. Usually, developers just call this app.py. Inside, you only need 2 basic concepts to get started. First, you import Flask. Second, you create your application object, defining it as app equals Flask, parentheses, __ name __, parentheses. That object, that's the heartbeat of your project. It's the central registry that tells Python, hey, listen, this script right here, this is going to be our web application. And right here is where the magic really happens. In your code, you use something called a decorator. It looks like the @ app.root with a slash in quotes. That is literally telling Flask, okay, if anyone visits the root URL of our website, just the plain base homepage, run the function immediately below this. Then you define a standard Python function that just returns the text, hello Flask. When you run this file, Flask starts up a local server, you open your browser, and boom, those exact words are on your screen. You just built a working web app.
Section 3. Understanding routes and views.
Now, what's really amazing about this is how friction-free scaling up becomes. Want an about page? You don't need complex routing tables. You just add another decorator with /about, define an about function, and return your text. Every new page or API endpoint is literally just another simple building block right there in your file. Okay, but I do need to warn you about a very common beginner mistake here. Because Flask is so simple, it is way too easy to just keep dumping hundreds of routes into that single app.py file until it becomes a chaotic, unreadable mess. As your project grows, Flask is actually designed to be neatly organized. You keep your core logic in app.py, you put your HTML files in a folder literally called templates,
And you store your styling, JavaScript, and images in a static folder. And when you start building truly massive applications, Flask has this awesome feature called blueprints that lets you split your app into smaller, reusable modules. Trust me, organization from day one is absolutely key.
Section 4. Building dynamic web pages.
So when you set up a route, you can actually grab dynamic information on the fly. For example, if you set your route to capture a username, say /user/Sarah, Flask grabs that directly from the URL and passes Sarah straight into your Python function as a variable. Then you use a built-in tool called renderTemplate to hand that variable off to an HTML file.
Let's see how this builds out. Flask uses a templating engine called Jinja to put these puzzle pieces together. Inside your HTML file, you use double curly braces around a variable name. That's Jinja's way of saying, hey, wait, don't just print this exact word. Look for the variable Python just passed us and inject its value right here. This is exactly how you dynamically generate custom greetings or user dashboards without having to write a million different static HTML files. It's brilliant.
Section 5. APIs and database integrations. Now, if you want to build an invisible data pipeline, like a REST-style API, Flask has your back. Instead of using renderTemplate to return HTML, you can use a built-in function called JSONify. Here, we just pass it a standard Python dictionary containing a list of products. Flask automatically converts that Python dictionary into JSON, which is basically the universal language of the modern web, and sets all the correct internet headers so any front-end application or mobile app can easily read that data. It's incredibly straightforward.
And here's the workflow for that API request. The front end asks for data, the Flask route catches it, and in step 3, you typically have your Python logic talk to a database. Now remember what we said earlier. Flask is a flexible starter kit. It doesn't force a specific database on you. You aren't locked into PostgreSQL or MySQL. You can plug in whatever you want. A super popular choice is adding an extension called Flask SQL Alchemy, which clicks perfectly into step 3, letting your Python code easily query your database and pass those records directly to step 4 to become a JSON response.
Section 6. Real-world Flask and security.
Because Flask's core is intentionally so small and unopinionated, it powers an enormous variety of applications in the real world. Startups use it for quick prototypes. Massive tech companies use it to build hundreds of tiny, lightning-fast backend services, and it is huge in the data science community. If someone trains a complex machine learning model in Python, they'll often wrap it in a quick Flask API so a website can actually use it to make predictions. You simply bolt on different extensions depending on what you're building.
But listen, with great flexibility comes the responsibility to secure your app. So the crucial point here is safely transitioning from your local computer out into the wild. When you're building locally, you might run your app in debug mode. Debug mode is fantastic for learning. It gives you detailed error pages if your code breaks. But if you leave debug mode on in a public production environment, actually, scratch that. It's more than a mistake, it's dangerous. Hackers can use those detailed errors to literally break into your server. Always use a proper secure server with HTTPS in production. Never trust user input without validating it. And please, whatever you do, never leave your database passwords or secret keys hard-coded in your app.py file where anyone might see them.
Well, we've seen how Flask acts as the ultimate lightweight bridge between your Python logic and the vastness of the web. It handles all that complicated networking so you can just focus on building your ideas. You know how routes work, you know how templates make things dynamic, and you know how to serve JSON data. So my final question to you is this. Now that you have the tools to show your Python code to the world, what will you build first? Take that leap, start experimenting, and I'll see you next time on The Explainer.